Good evening, you're watching Brass Tacks. I'm Zakka Jacob. India is sending multi-party delegations across major global capitals from Washington to London to Moscow. Now, part of this attempt is to try and recapture some of the lost narrative away from Pakistan after Operation Sindoor and its aftermath. The question is, why will the international community take seriously the words of a terror state like Pakistan, which over the years, for the last 3 decades really, has been fomenting terrorism as an instrument of statecraft? Why would it take seriously the words of a failed state like Pakistan over that of a democracy like India, especially when there is this equanimity being introduced by the likes of Donald Trump, the US president, and others between India and Pakistan, two nuclear-powered neighbors? At the same time, this entire Operation Sindoor was undertaken by India to try and respond to the act of terror that happened on the 22nd of April in Pahalgam. It was not an equanimous decision, and therefore India and Pakistan, the victim and the perpetrator, cannot be equated to the same. But first, let's bring you this breaking story that's coming through, because it's not just these multi-party delegations that are going to various capitals. The External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, is in Germany. He's on a 3-nation trip to Denmark, to Germany, and of course he will conclude that in the next day or so. After he held talks with the German Foreign Minister, the External Affairs Minister has publicly condemned the terrorist attack that happened on the 22nd of April at Pahalgam. He has supported India's right to defend itself against terrorism, as would be the case with any defined nation state. And number 3, he's also advocated bilateral solution between India and Pakistan. Remember, there's been a lot of consternation around the fact and this whole thing that Donald Trump, the US president, has put forth, that somehow the United States was responsible for this mediated ceasefire between India and Pakistan. India, of course, has completely denied that, saying no third party, no United States, no Russia, no one else had any role in bringing about that ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Let me go across to my colleague Siddhant, who is more on this. Siddhant, so once again, the External Affairs Minister, what he said to the Dutch press, now what he's saying to the German press, is that twofold. Number one, that it was bilaterally arrived at between India and Pakistan. It had nothing to do with any third party. And more importantly, India is now drawing a new red line for terror, Pakistan-sponsored, Pakistan-inflicted terror, and that is that there will be cost and pain for the enemy to pay.
Well, absolutely, Zakka. And in fact, the more interesting development here is that there is an open endorsement which is coming from German Foreign Minister to India's right to defend its territory. In fact, just a short while back, this press briefing happened, and in fact, both foreign ministers addressed press in Germany, and there are 3 points which German Foreign Minister made, Zakka. One, that Germany condemned the terrorist attack on India. Number 2, Germany supported India's right to defend itself against terrorism. And number 3, advocated bilateral solution between India and Pakistan. Perhaps a big endorsement coming from Germany, Zakka, and especially at a time when, as you rightly pointed out, that there is a narrative which is being built that how world completely isolated India after Pahalgam attack, and perhaps there are countries like China, like Turkey, backing Pakistan openly, but when it comes to supporting India in its right to defend itself against terrorism, perhaps none of these countries came forward and issued a strong statement. But that is not the case, Zakka. In fact, German Foreign Minister gave a big endorsement to India's right to defend itself against terrorism. In fact, he also went on to say that on 7th of May, I beg your pardon, EMS Jaishankar said that on 7th of May, both foreign ministers spoke to each other, and at that point in time also, Germany condemned the terror attacks, and Germany extended support to India in its right to defend itself against terrorism. Having said that, Zakka, Germans were also in touch with French foreign ministry. In fact, German foreign minister said that on the very first day after Pahalgam attack, He spoke to French
All right.
foreign minister, perhaps to get the first-hand report. So to say this, that West has completely isolated India, no, none of the countries from the Western world, is coming forward to support India would be wrong. Perhaps a very big endorsement is coming, and this is for the first time on record. This endorsement is coming, that how Germany stood with India before Operation Sindoor, and perhaps again they have reiterated their position that they support India's right to defend itself against terrorism.
All right, Siddhant, we'll leave it at that. So the Indian foreign minister, he's on a 3-nation trip to the Netherlands, to Copenhagen, and of course to Germany. His latter half will conclude that trip to Germany, where he has spoken to media and he has reiterated the message that India and Pakistan bilaterally arrived at the ceasefire. It has nothing to do with any third-party mediation. I want to now shift focus now to what has effectively been a little over 2 weeks after Operation Sindoor. Now voices are coming out from Pakistan on the real extent of the damage that India has managed to carry out deep within Pakistani territory, hundreds of kilometers inside Pakistani territory. Multiple Pakistani members of parliament, now Maryam Nawaz, who is the chief minister of Punjab, the daughter of former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, she has also come out and asked the very same question. How is it that India managed to hit so far deep inside Pakistani territory? Up until now, up until Operation Sindoor, there was this unsaid red line that with Pakistan, you cannot cross the line of control. With Pakistan, you cannot hit beyond Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. But with Operation Sindoor, India has managed to hit Muridke, Bahawalpur, all of which are tens of kilometers inside Pakistani Punjab. And the extent of the damage that India caused on Pakistan is only now coming to light, given not just the accounts that we're seeing from senior members of parliament in Pakistan, but also ordinary Pakistani citizens. The bigger question, though, is how long will Pakistan and the rest of the world continue to be in denial about the extent of damage left behind in the wake of Operation Sindoor?
किसी ने ये नहीं पूछा कि GHQ से 5 किलोमीटर चकलाला एयरबेस तक ये ड्रोन कैसे पहुंचा, ये धमाका कैसे हुआ। अपने इदारों को हम क्यों डिस्कस ना करें कि हमारे इदारे क्या कर रहे हैं। हमारे जो यहाँ पे फोर्सेस है बलूचिस्तान में, जिनको हमने इतने इख्तियारात दिए हैं, जो मुझे भी तलाशी कर सकता है, मेरे घर में भी बगैर पूछे घुस सकता है, हम उससे क्यों नहीं पूछते कि भाई आप क्या कर रहे हो वहाँ पे।
जो कुछ 9 मई को हुआ और जो कुछ उससे पहले इंडिया ने 6 और 7 मई की शाम को हमला करके किया, उसमें ज्यादा फर्क नहीं है, बल्कि शायद हमने ज्यादा, हमारी उस सियासी जमात ने ज्यादा नुकसान पहुंचाया पाकिस्तान को।
Now, faced with questions of its own failure in the aftermath of Operation Sindoor, the Pakistani army is resorting to threatening India. Pakistani military spokesperson Lieutenant General Ahmad Sharif Chaudhry recently echoed very hate-filled sentiments against India, similar to those expressed by terrorist Hafiz Saeed in the past. Now, anybody who's asking about whether there is a link between Pakistani state players and non-state players needs to listen to this. The commonality of language, the commonality of phrases used by both the DGISPR, who is the spokesperson of the Pakistan military, and someone like a Hafiz Saeed. Top intelligence sources have revealed to CNN News 18 that the Army Chief General Asim Munir has recently been reading Quranic verses at various meetings of the Corps commanders and other leaders of the Pakistan military. In fact, he's been delivering sermons at places mostly meant for Islamic Maulvis. It is also during these sermons that remarks against Indian forces and the Indian government are being made. There seems to be a spiritual justification for the proxy warfare that Pakistan has unleashed, a sufficient means to transform state-backed terrorism into religious obligation for the soldiers as well as for the radicals. And that's not all. Even soldiers in the Pakistan army, in the olives, in the fatigues, they are indoctrinated with a view that Kashmir is a jihadi cause. Sources have also informed radical Maulvis have been hired to try and teach jihad to Pakistan army recruits.
सुन, अगर तू पानी बंद करेगा, इंशाअल्लाह हम तेरी सांस बंद करेंगे, इन दरियाओं में फिर खून बहेगा।
तुम हमारा पानी बंद कर दोगे, हम तुम्हारा सांस बंद कर देंगे।
So it's the exact phraseology between the spokesperson of the Pakistan army and a proscribed terrorist like Hafiz Saeed. Let's try and make sense of this. Tilak Devasher is former member of the National Security Advisory Board, former member of the Cabinet Secretariat, author as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Devasher. This whole thing, you've heard from Pakistani members of Parliament, Umar Farooq, Maryam Nawaz, who's the Chief Minister of Punjab, the biggest province, the daughter of the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, all of them saying, how is it that India managed to penetrate so deep within Pakistan? Do you think eventually these questions that are now being raised by a few parliamentarians, something that the Pakistan Army is loath to answer, the Pakistan establishment is loath to bear responsibility for, will it eventually come to bite them back? Because it seems like they're papering over all of these fault lines, whether it's through the field marshal rank, whether it's through victory celebrations, but eventually the truth just has to come out.
Absolutely. Satyamev Jayate, truth will always come out. And now it is beginning to come out, especially that the initial media hype against India on the 7th and 8th in the West, is now dissipating. You have now more and more learned scholars who have viewed what actually happened, are writing about it and talking about it. So gradually, even the Pakistani public, especially the YouTubers, they are beginning to realize, hey, wait a minute. We were not so successful, and now that more and more evidence is coming out of how India used decoys, which were ones probably that were shot down, and they can see the physical evidence of the damage to the airfields and the terror training camps, terror camps of the Jaish and the Lashkar. So there is now greater realization in Pakistan. And how long can they continue to hide this? Because in this day and age of satellites and of social media, you cannot hide all this together. And you're right, they try to mask it by this promotion of Field Marshal to Asim Munir. First time ever, I think, this rank has been given for a defeat. And even this Kuzdar incident of the bus, I'm trying to pin it on India, I'm trying to show that India is involved in terrorism and put an equivalence. So all this clearly shows, especially the statement that Maryam Nawaz made. Actually, if you look beneath the surface of the statement, May 9th is important for Pakistan because the PTI damaged the aura of the Pakistan Army by attacking the symbols of the Pakistan Army, Corps Commander's House, GHQ, Martyrs Memorial. She is comparing that event to the Indian strike between 7th and 10th, showing once again that the aura of the Pakistan Army has been badly damaged. These are very significant statements. Shehbaz Sharif saying that at 2:30 in the morning, Asim Munir told him that the Noor Khan base had been attacked. So these are all very significant statements, and gradually you go to hear more and more about it.
But Mr. Devasher, ultimately this round of the Indo-Pakistan conflict seems to have ended in a bit of a stalemate. Pakistan did what it did in Pahalgam. India responded to that. Pakistan then escalated further, but clearly it was not in a position to dominate the escalation ladder. In response, India inflicted a much higher degree of pain on Pakistan. It is said that the cost of using these terror proxies is going to be much higher, so Pakistan will have to rethink on this strategy. Are we in a position, though, at the end of the day, to say that India has inflicted so much of a degree of pain to Pakistan that Pakistan will begin to stop using these terror proxies? At the same time, the question of Pakistan also, this whole business of the law of diminishing returns. Will Pakistan stop using these terror proxies? Because India has now indicated it's not just going to be these non-state actors that India is going to hit at. It's going to hit deep within Pakistan. It's going to hit state actors. And India is not going to make the distinction between state and non-state actors. So will that be a pain enough for the Pakistani establishment to stop using these terror proxies?
I think these are two separate questions. I don't think it was a stalemate. I think India has hit them much harder. And especially on the terror headquarters as well as on the air bases. They hit them much harder. But whether Pakistan will give up terrorism as a result of this, I don't think so. Because, terrorism the last 4 decades, they have trained, they've invested, they find this is a low-cost option to keep India on the boil, keep India under check. It is going to take much more to get Pakistan to abjure. And that much more, that plus or X factor, is the holding in abeyance the Indus Water Treaty. Gradually, if you look at the nuances of what is coming out in the Pak media and especially social media, the lack of water and the danger is now beginning to hurt Pakistan. People are in the National Assembly have raised this issue that 60% of our population is dependent on agriculture, 90% of our electricity and the hydropower and irrigation is all coming from the Indus. If there's any disruption in that, simply because there is no life without water. People are beginning to realize this and starting to make a noise. The army has no answer. They know very well that India is determined that they will start talks on the Indus water, if at all, when Pakistan abjures terrorism completely. It's credible. So this is what is going to hurt Pakistan in the long term, much more than the kinetic action.